If we confess our sins, He will forgive our sins. We can trust God. He does what is right. He will make us clean from all the wrongs we have done. 1 John 1:9. If we confess our sins, another way to say this is, He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to purify us from all unrighteousness. Wow, what an incredible promise. We have to do something. Christ does something in return, which is something we can't do for ourselves. Can you drive a car right now? No, you have to rely on somebody else to do that. Can you provide food for your family and go and buy things and have a job? No, you need somebody else to do that for you right now. In the same way, we can't do something for ourselves. And in the same way that one day we won't be able, with a job one day we'll be able to do those things. But in this way we can't forgive our own sins. We can't be forgiven by choosing to do it ourselves. We have to have someone greater than ourselves to do that. And that's God. So today in the story, talking about forgiveness, we come across a person who I don't think should even be forgiven. Ooh, that's a tough thing to say. Well, what I mean by that is, they seem like such a mean person and such a nasty person that you would be surprised that God would even forgive them, or that this person would even forgive them. So let's read and find out what the story is and what's happening and what's this got to do with forgiveness. A little servant girl and the proud general. Naaman was a very important man in a very important army of a very important country. So, you see, he was very, very, very important. But Naaman was sick. He had leprosy, which is a nasty thing that stops you from feeling anything. Bits of you fall off without you even noticing. What? Like bashed fingers and squished toes? It might sound funny, but it wasn't. And Naaman certainly wasn't laughing. There was no cure. It never went away, and in the end, it killed you. Naaman needed help. Now, there was a little slave girl who worked for Naaman, and she knew someone who could help him. But there was a problem. Naaman was her enemy. Not long before, Naaman had led an army raid on her home in Israel. He had killed her whole family, carried her off to Syria, and made her into his slave. Every night she cried herself to sleep. She had lost everything. Why would she of all people want to help Naaman? Didn't she hate him and want to hurt him back? Didn't she want to make him pay for the wrong he'd done? That's what you would expect. But instead of hating him, she loved him. Instead of hurting him back, she forgave him. I want Naaman to get well, she said to her mistress. There's a man in Israel named Elisha who can heal him. I'll go, said Naaman, loading up his wagons and putting on his flashing armor. But I'll go to the palace because that's where someone important like me goes to get healed. So he hurried off to Israel and went straight to the king. My healing, please. What? Let me see that. I can do lots of things, the king replied, but only God can heal you. Just then a message from Elisha arrived. Send Naaman here, it read. So Naaman hurried off to Elisha's house, but Elisha didn't even come out and greet him. He just sent a servant instead. Doesn't Elijah realize who I am? Naaman thought. He thought he was pretty important, right? Oh, look at that. Can infer what's going on with the picture. But what the servant said next made him even more cross. Wash in there, he said. Just wash? Naaman laughed. In that slimy, stinky river? He looked around to see if this was some kind of joke. It wasn't. Any person can wash in a river, he thought. I am Naaman. I am important. I should do something important so God will heal me. And he rode off in a rage. Of course, you and I both know that's not how God does things. All Naaman needed was nothing. It was the one thing Naaman didn't have. God knew that Naaman was even sicker on the inside than he was on the outside. Naaman was proud. He thought he didn't need God. His heart didn't work properly. It couldn't feel anything. You see, Naaman had leprosy of his heart. God was not only going to heal Naaman's skin, he was going to heal his pride. Naaman finally agreed to wash in the river. And instantly his skin became smooth like a baby. Naaman wanted to pay Elijah. God healed you. You can't pay, Elisha said. It's free. And so it was that a very sick man was healed, all because of a little servant girl who forgave him. God knew sin was like leprosy. It stopped his children's hearts from working properly, and in the end, it would kill them. Years later, God was going to send another servant to forgive as she did, to forgive all of God's children and heal the terrible sickness in their hearts. Their hearts were broken, but God can mend broken hearts. Do you notice that the girl forgave even though she didn't need to? She didn't want to. And she did something where she forgave, where she relied on God, who was greater than herself, in order to do it. And that's what we need to do as well. Forgiveness doesn't just come like that. We can't just say, oh, I'll forgive that. We need to call on God and rely on Him so that we can forgive, because He's the one who's forgiving first. In the Bible it also says He loved us first, and we can forgive only because God forgave us first. If we confess our sins, He will forgive our sins. We can trust God. He does what is right. He will make us clean from all the wrongs that we have done. 1 John 1:9.